Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town of Milton Planning Board monthly meeting for May 2021. Ms. Blanchard, would you please call the attendance of the board?
Ms. Marscano?
Here.
Ms. Padula?
Oh, sorry.
Here. Mr. Collins? Oh, Mr. Collins is not joining us tonight. Ms. Vandenza? Here. Ms. Stevens?
Here.
Mr. Whittle?
Here.
Chairman Bartow?
Here. And I also want to note that in attendance with us this evening are engineer Joel Bianchi, our counsel William Kennery, Director of Planning and Codes Bill Lewis, the Board Secretary Tina Blanchard, Deputy Clerk Amanda Zawada, and our new Planning Board Clerk Patty Nealon. Patty, welcome. We look forward to working with you. It's the first chance you've ever had to meet any of us. I don't know if you're going to say anything to the board.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Okay, thank you. And I would ask Mr. Whittle, would you lead us in the pledge of the flag?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to put forth two changes to this evening's agenda. First is that we don't have the minutes from our April meeting complete yet, so we will not have those for today's agenda item. We'll have them in June, so you'll get the May-June minutes, April minutes in June. Second, I'd like to move the Gildea Minor Subdivision project up to our first project for this evening. I do notice that they're online, and I think maybe somebody's in attendance here. But if that's okay, I'd like to have them go first, just a much smaller, less time project than the rest that we have to do. So with that, I'd like to entertain a motion to amend the agenda, deleting the minutes and moving the Gildea project up.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I second.
Any discussion, any other changes from the board? If not, Tina, poll the board, please.
Ms. Marscano?
Yes.
Ms. Padula?
Yes.
Ms. Vandenza?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Chairman Bartow?
Yes. The only other announcement I really have tonight is that we did do a tour of the community solar site at the Ostro facility on Murray, or not Murray Road, but and the Murray Road facility on Tuesday, May 12th. I want to thank Mr. Mrs. Ostro, and as well as Frank McLennan for offering the tours. Board members in attendance, including myself, Nick Stevens, and Nancy Padula. Well worth the tour. It was a beautiful day, actually. You know. And then other than that, I want to just remind the board members that we do have the continuing education credits due for this year. There's been a lot of online training opportunities. If you have any trouble finding something, let us know. We'll make sure you can get something in there. I even found some that are pre-recorded and wasn't actually downloaded, and they give you proof of verification. So, at this point, we will open the meeting to comments from the public. Please note that we have two public hearings this evening as well, so if you have comments on those projects specifically, please wait until we have those hearings so your remarks will be on the record. We have one project, the Cesar PDD on Stone Church Road, that does not have a public hearing. So if you'd like to comment on that project, now would be the time. I'd ask that if you're Zooming with us and you want to make a public comment, please use the hand wave feature or submit something via chat. And we're watching those to see if folks have comments there. And if you've dialed in on the phone and would like to make a comment, you can probably best to text me, Bill. Text Bill Lewis at 518-376-1831 and let him know your name and if you'd like to make a comment. Anybody in the public like to make a comment at this time? I don't see anybody online. Anybody see anybody online? I'm not seeing any hand waves. Okay, I'm going to have to promote that. Okay. There being no public comment here or online that I can see, we'll close the public comment period. Okay, our first project this evening will be a minor subdivision application at 3586 Galloway Road by Miss Carol Gildea. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Everyone should have before them a letter of transmittal dated from KM Flattery on 5/3/21, a minor subdivision application dated 4/22/21, a minor subdivision plat dated 4/7/21. Regarding seeker, the State Environmental Quality Review Act, I'll first entertain a motion to declare the Milton Planning Board as lead agency on the Gildea minor subdivision application.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Okay, John Little, and then do I have a second?
Chairman, I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? There being none, pull the board.
Mr. Marsicano?
Yes.
Ms. Padula? Yes. Mr. Collins? Sorry. Ms. Van Denza?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Little?
Yes.
Chairman Barto?
Yes. Next, I'll entertain a motion to declare the Gildea minor subdivision as an unlisted action.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Any discussion? No discussion, pull the board.
Mr. Marsicano?
Yes.
Ms. Padula? Yes. Ms. Van Denza?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Little?
Yes.
Chairman Barto?
Yes. Okay, I'll now read the 11 questions from Part 2 of the short environmental assessment form. Anybody has a comment or a change, just make sure you let me know. First question, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? Indicated no or no impact. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the land use? Indicated no. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? Indicated no. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? There's no CEA, so indicated no. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? Indicated no. 6, will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Indicated no. 7, will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies or public-private wastewater treatment facilities? In both instances, I indicated no. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Indicated no. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, including wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna? Indicated no. 10, will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or damage, or drainage problems? Indicated no. And 11, will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? It's indicated no. Does anybody have any comments or suggested changes to those and responses? That being said, or not said, I need a motion to approve the parts 2 and 3 of the short environmental assessment form, and that based on the minor subdivision application submitted and the environmental assessment provided and reviewed, that the proposed approval of the minor subdivision will not result in any significant adverse.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Stevens? Any discussion? If not, no discussion, pull the board.
Mr. Marsicano?
Yes.
Ms. Padula? Yes. Ms. Van Denza?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Little?
Yes.
Chairman Barto?
Yes. Okay, do we have a representative of the Gildea minor subdivision here to present the project? I think I see somebody online. Kevin Flatley? Okay. Kevin, would you like to just give a little bit of background on the
Can
project?
you put your
Yeah.
microphone to the speaker? Sorry, I'm not trying to micromanage.
Okay.
Sorry, Joe, you didn't hear any of that.
You didn't hear any of it?
No.
I can't turn the computer off. Hold on, Kevin.
Okay.
Does that sound better? All right, hold on. Go ahead, Kevin. Can you repeat that brief summary again?
Yes, the proposal is to subdivide a 13.94 existing parcel into 2 lots. Lot 1 will be 7.19 acres. Lot 2 will be 6.75 acres. Lot 1, there's a single-family house currently on Lot 1. The Lot 2 would be a proposed building lot for a single-family home to be determined in the future.
Mr. Lewis, do you have any comments for the board at this time?
Minor subdivision, we are to, usually applicant.
Microphone.
Myself and the applicant's representative talked, it's a minor subdivision in the R2, pretty much straightforward, as you see on the proposed subdivision map that was submitted by the applicant. I don't see anything out of the ordinary.
Okay. Does the board have any questions? Mr. Flanagan?
I'm sorry, I have one question.
Go ahead.
It has to do with the proposed garage on lot 2. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
What was the question?
Yeah, I didn't ask that yet. The proposed garage, is there a driveway or anything that goes to the proposed garage?
There's not an existing drive. There is a gravel road coming in on the drive on Lot 1 that would access that proposed garage from Lot 1, and there is a proposed gravel road from the proposed driveway on Lot 2 that will go into that garage.
So are there corresponding easements to allow that garage access?
At this time, it's family-owned property. They're doing a subdivision for the daughter. And I think, as you can see on the map, there's a tail to the garage that they're proposing just to connect to the garage, but they would have the 50-foot frontage he's talking about. He would eventually bring it back if they were ever to sell the parcel. They'd have access to the garage from the front 50-foot driveway. I think that's what the applicant's trying to say.
Yeah, I think he is too. Is that appropriate? Can we have the access from a different parcel without
It's family owned, sure. If they were to sell it, then it would be something that would have to be isolated, and it would be no longer in use.
Okay.
They would have the driveway from the proposed lot in front, and carry the driveway back to the proposed garage.
Whatever they decide, whether it's an easement or a proposed drive, right? It could be either, right?
I mean, it could, but I would imagine if they sell off the second parcel, the person's gonna, if it's different ownership, they're gonna utilize their own driveway and just isolate that, whether it be a fence or block it or dig it up, put a culvert or whatever over. I would imagine, again, I'm speaking for the applicant, which I can't.
No, I'm not trying to make you speak for the applicant, I was just simply asking the question there, because it's a pretty substantial distance back from the road, so that's why I was asking the question. So that the building inspector doesn't answer for you, do you agree with that? Or do you have anything to add?
Kevin, do you agree with what has been discussed here in terms of?
Oh, okay, I didn't know that question was addressed to me.
Sorry, sir.
Yes, right now, it's the gravel drive that's there does not go on to the proposed lot 2. I agree that if lot 2 was ever sold off in the future to a non-family member, that driveway would probably be eliminated.
Well, that's what I anticipated. That's why I wanted to know if there was going to be easements or whether there was going to be shown a potential drive.
If the garage was still going to be in use by the father who lives on lot 1, or if he sold his house, then whatever property was conveyed, then yes, an easement would be created if that garage was going to be used by the adjoining.
Because I recognize it says,
I think that would be the case.
I recognize it says proposed garage, so this garage doesn't even exist yet, so
No,
I understand that.
no.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? There being none, Tina, just have you referred this for county referral? Does this need to go?
I did refer it, and I should hear back. Their meeting is tomorrow, so,
Okay, so they have it.
yes.
All right. So if the board's okay, we could schedule a public hearing for this project for next month. So if you're inclined, I will entertain a motion to schedule a public hearing on the Jovia minor subdivision for 7:05 p.m. on June 16th.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Pull the board.
Mr. Marsicano?
Yes.
Ms. Padula?
Yes.
Ms. Mesa?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Chairman Barto?
Yes. Kevin, thank you. You're welcome to stay on and observe or sign off. So you prefer.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, our next project this evening, we have Mr. McClenahan and Mr. Dell for an amendment to their site plan and special use permit for the 830 Murray Road Community Solar Farm. The project applicant proposes to expand the solar farm that we approved in June of 2019. And if I'm not mistaken, we're looking at this as an expansion. You're technically with the state, or sort of, whether they're two separate projects, correct?
Two separate interconnections.
All right, I just want to make that clear on the record. And then in terms of additional information that we should have before us, some things came in on this, specifically a response to comments from Lansing Engineering dated May 4th, 2021, an updated full environmental assessment form dated 5/4/21, and comments from our engineer dated 5/18/21. As I mentioned earlier, we had the opportunity to conduct a site visit of the project on May 12th. It saw no significant visual or environmental impacts. We had to conduct a coordinated review on this project. So Mr. Bianchi, do you have any feedback on it? So we're
No,
good to go ahead?
because we had done it before, same agencies, none of them responded, so you are free to assume the agency status, or continue to serve the agency status.
So at this point, we can proceed with seeker in advance of the scheduled public hearing. We've completed what is necessary to be the lead agency. And I now read the summary of the 18 questions. Okay, on the full environmental assessment form, part 2. I'm only going to go to the sub-questions if I answer yes to the main question, so I avoid about 60 questions. So the impact on land, proposed action may involve construction or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site, and we said yes, but that all the sub-impacts would be small or no impact, specifically relative to depth of water table less than 3 feet, action involving slopes greater than 15%, proposed action may involve construction on land where bedrock is exposed, the project may involve the excavation and removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material, proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year, proposed action may result in an increase in erosion. All said no, small impact. Question 2, impact on geological features. The proposed action may result in modification, destruction, or inhibit access to any unique or unusual landforms on the site. So no. Impacts on surface water. The proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies. The answer we said is no. Impact on groundwater. The proposed action may result in new or additional use of groundwater or may have potential to introduce contaminants. We said no. Number 5, impact on flooding. The proposed action may result in development on land subject to flooding. No. Number 6, impacts on air. The proposed action may include a state-regulated air emission source. The answer is no. Impact on plants and animals. The proposed action may result in the loss of flora or fauna. We said yes. For each of the sub-questions where we said a small or no impact. The proposed action may cause a reduction in population or loss of individuals of any threatened or endangered species. I believe these are bat species.
Yep,
That. Proposed action may result in reduction or degradation of the habitat used by the threatened or endangered species. Proposed action may cause a reduction in the population or loss of individuals of any species of special concern or conservation need. Indeed, the proposed action may result in reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any species of special concern or conservation need designated by New York State or federal government. We for each of those said no or small impact. The proposed action may diminish the capacity of a registered. We said no. The proposed action may result in the removal of ground disturbance of any portion of the designated natural community. No. Proposed action may substantially interfere with the nesting, breeding, foraging, or global wintering habitat of a predominant species. No. Proposed action requires the conversion of more than 10 acres of forest, grassland, or other regional important habitat. We said no. The lowest action involves the use of herbicides or pesticides, and it does not. Question 8, impact on agricultural resources. The proposed action may impact agricultural resources. We're saying no. Impact on aesthetic resources. The land use of the proposed action are obviously different from or in sharp contrast to current land use patterns between the proposed action and any scenic or aesthetic resource. We're saying no. 10, impact on historic or archaeological resources. The proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historic or archaeological site. Answer is no. Impact on open space and recreation. The proposed action may result in the loss of recreation opportunities or reduction of an open space resources as designated in an adopted municipal open space plan. So no. Impact on critical environmental areas. The proposed action may be located within or adjacent to a critical environmental area. There's none there. So no. Impact on transportation. The proposed action may result in a change in the existing transportation system. We're saying no. Impact on energy. The proposed action may cause an increase in the use of any form of energy. We're saying no. Impact on noise, odor, or light. The proposed action may result in an increase in noise, odors, or outdoor lighting. We're saying no. Impact on human health. The proposed action may have an impact on human health from exposure to new or existing sources of contaminants. We're saying no. Question 17, consistency with community plans. The proposed action is not consistent with adopted land use plans. We're saying no. Consistency with community character. The proposed action is inconsistent with the existing community character, and we are saying no. We don't have any changes or additions to the impact assessment. Having identified no moderate to large impacts that may occur as a result of this project, I will now entertain a motion that as lead agency, the Town of Milton Planning Board has determined that proposed action to construct a community solar farm at 830 Murray Road will result in little or no significant adverse impacts on the environment, and therefore an environmental impact statement will not be prepared, and the chair is authorized to sign the determination of significance and submit the notice of determination of non-significance.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Second.
Chairman, I'll second.
Any further discussion? Tina, can you pull the board?
Ms. Marciano?
Yes.
Ms. Padula?
Yes.
Ms. Vendanza?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Little?
Yes.
Chairman Barto?
Yes. Having duly completed seeker requirements, Mr. McLennan and Mr. Dell, do you have anything to report? Okay. I will open the public hearing at 7:28 p.m. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to make regarding this project? Nope.
Chairman, I'd like to apologize to Mr. Waters and his neighbor during the notification portion of it. Due to a snafu in the SBLs, the two parcels were not notified, but they were kind enough to call. I discussed it with them today. It was just the two parcels. Again, his brother-in-law, Mr. Waters and his brother-in-law, they're here tonight. I just want to apologize. Snafu on our part.
It was Mr. Waters and who else?
His brother-in-law, I forget.
Mr. Genovi.
Do either of you have any comments you'd like to make?
No, not necessarily. I mean, we worked with Frank, talked with Bill a bunch in regards to what's going on. We were fearful at the time because we looked at the map that they ended up clear cutting right to the property line, which would have probably happened. Then the panels would have been pretty near to what we have out where we live. But Frank and ourselves came to agreement in regards to leaving some of the foliage and some of the trees that I think you guys probably saw on your trip when you guys went out there, which appeases the ability not to see. Because we moved to the country for a reason and live out where we live, not to. Seems like solar is the cool thing to do if you've got extra fields that you have nothing to do with right now. But we're satisfied in regards, and it affects my brother-in-law more than what my property is. But you know, it's sort of hopefully all said and done, it'll be out of sight, out of mind. I just want to make sure that the berms and the coverage and everything else and the agreed, which I haven't seen this yet, but what we've agreed on with the tapes that are in the woods now will stay the way they are, and we'll have those trees left, and the berm will be built, and we can get it done.
Yeah, when we did the tour, Frank pointed that out to us quite explicitly.
Yeah, so-
that he really wants to make sure that
Chad, this is the same plan that I showed you. Not over the line, not like we're big acre.
Greg, can you hold that one?
Yep. So, Jay, you want to So limits of clearance, 100 feet, that's where it tapers back. This is where the caution tape we have is. We have now panels are even further back from that. Fence, again, back from that. This area, landscape plan, be installed on existing path. Contractor field verify location, path, time of construction. So that's the berm. That's the caution tape line. Yep. So, and with our, our plan as we build this, we'll have a surveyor come out and just pick up those points that we have in the field and change the as-built to match that.
Great.
So,
That's what it is. It's all about vision, but I want to see it.
we'd like to continue living in the neighborhood and stuff, and having friends.
Okay, I see one Q&A here. Is anyone online? Okay, David Manzel, hold on, let me, I'm trying to find David Manzel. Let's see.
It's under Rita, she has a comment. So if you unmute Rita.
David, you should be able to unmute yourself and speak up. David, can you unmute yourself and speak up? Are allowed to unmute? David, once again, I asked you to unmute. Oh, sounds like you're there?
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, David, we can hear you now. David, do you have a comment?
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, David, we can hear you. You need to speak up.
My name is David Mandel.
We're getting some feedback on your end. Do you want to try to phone in to Bill Lewis's phone?
By the way. Five one eight.
518
376.
376
1831.
1831. And if you want to speak to the Austro landfill, we have not opened that hearing yet. That's going to be the next hearing coming up.
I'm trying to speak.
Yeah, and we're getting a lot of feedback. So I gave you that phone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You have a phone on next to your computer. You need to separate it. That's giving feedback. But go ahead and speak up.
Just want to speak.
Maybe if you mute your computer and use your phone.
Possibly hear me now?
You're still getting a lot of feedback. You must have a phone and a computer on at the same time.
Can you hear me? I want to speak about the solar panel project whenever it's appropriate.
Yes, that's the one you want to speak on is our next project. And it'll be easiest if you've just phoned in and when that comes up and turn your computer off. The number is 518-376 1831. So, but we're not there yet. We'll be there in a few minutes, I hope. Okay, any other comments from the public?
Is it possible for the board or the town attorney to explain to me what decommissioning plan and situation is with the field. I know there's some money in escrow, but what's the town's responsibility? Is there any town responsibility in the future other than just hold the money? You explain that further.
I think the best one to explain would be our engineer, because he's the one that's been commenting on this. So Joe, do you want to explain what's happening with this?
Yeah, the way that decommissioning is set up is it's security provided to the town should the developer choose not to, or for whatever reason, cannot
Real close.
take care of removing the panels. So what the applicants do is they develop a labor cost to remove those panels. And then what the practice of this planning board is to recognize the salvage value of materials that don't, the value that is provided to the town as a security for future removal if they have it. It's merely a security for the town to take care of it. The idea is that the developer will take care of it. The life of the system.
So what's the present value of decommissioning for the present field, and what's the proposed addition for the additional field?
In the present field that you've got, I don't remember
Roughly
exactly.
100,000.
100,000. And this one, I think is in the
Roughly 60,000.
in that 150, 60.
I think that's low. We have to decommission that field today. We couldn't decommission that field for $100,000. I think the responsibility, the level of responsibility for the town really has to be minimized. I think the documentation between the applicants, the landowner, and the town really should be very specific to make sure that we're not going to have, a left behind. These panels are laden with a lot of heavy metals that, are going to be very difficult to decommission in the future. Those computer monitors, computers around this room today, if you try to get rid of, you have to, spend $25 to $30 a piece for those. These solar panels would cost much more than that to dispose of today. So when you look at the quantity of panels in that field today, the amount of labor, equipment, trucking to remove them, and disposal costs would be much greater than $100,000 to take that field down today and get rid of it. 20 years from now, when there's millions of these panels laying around, that cost is going to be astronomical. There's going to be piles of panels everywhere that no one can get rid of them. Us as the surrounding taxpayers, the taxpayers of this town should not be burdened with potential for that. And I think that we got to make sure that the town legally dots its i's, crosses its t's to be sure that maybe personal guarantees by the landowner and the applicants are put in place so that if this escrow money isn't enough, we're not all of us in this room aren't liable for that. In any other situation where someone's making a profit, personal guarantee is a very common means of security for us not to end up liable for that. So, my biggest concern is what I'll be left with 25 years from now, and this is a dead field. And I still plan to live where I live, 500 Silverman Road, 25 years from now. So, that's it. Not against the field, not against the project, but I am concerned about the future.
Just for the record, can I get your name?
John Munter from 500 Silverman Road.
I don't know, Bill, do you want to add anything to that?
I can add to it a little bit in terms of the general approach. Sorry. not commenting specifically as it relates to this project, but in general, the town attorney has taken a conscientious position on all of these projects. My understanding is that his thought process has been focused on the residents of the town, best interests of the town. I think you raised some very valid points, and I think that those are points that, from our perspective legally, we listen to, obviously, the town designated engineer as it relates to the calculations and the projections. Certainly that's the best that we've got in terms of reliance and undivided loyalty as it relates to the town. No question, it's an issue on every single project. We're focused on decommissioning, and I, to some extent, respectfully say, if you stay for the next application, you'll probably hear a similar discussion, because it is a very good point and a very good issue that this board, I think, is focused on, and certainly we are as well. Hope that helps.
I don't know if you guys want to respond to that?
Sure, I can add to it. So right now, we don't have heavy metals in modern day panels. That was a thing of the past. So silicone, glass, aluminum, silver is what makes us up. In the minor junction boxes are plastic. So copper wires coming off of them, jacketed. So even we used to have a couple of years ago, we had plastic back sheets. They're gone now, and now it's glass on glass. So every one of those materials gets recycled. There's facilities in place now to recycle them. They're not going to the landfills. We did a calculation of what we think the value is to do that. We're already seeing companies that are coming in, because we're starting to see systems repowered, and it's starting to, it's a business, right? So when we look at what they're doing, we think our numbers are accurate. So, and I guess Joel can comment on any of that, but we've believe me, I don't want to see something left in your backyard either. So, I live in the county as well.
I think the numbers are light in the construction industry. I'll give you $100,000 to decommission that, so we can take it today. 20 years from now, I don't see that even being close to feasible. The same.
I think you probably got almost $500,000 in metal sitting there.
Not necessarily. We don't know that for sure. 10 years ago, you could get paid for plastic and cardboard. Today, you have to pay to get rid of it. 20 years from now, you might have to pay to get rid of metals. You can't predict that. It's possible. The wind tower problem with the blades could be, analyze wind tower blades. Nobody can get rid of them. 25 years from now, it's going to be solar panels. So you can't predict 25 years from now based on today's numbers. So you have to be, this board has to be concerned about it, that man has to be concerned about it, and this man has to be concerned about it. Because we all are going to pay the price if his calculations are wrong. This board approves something, and the town attorneys do, and Mr. Engels and the applicant are, in the Caribbean and dealing with their son and their future. So we got to take it seriously. We got to think about it and make sure that we're covered. That's my point.
Well, we did refer this back to the engineer last month, and they recalculated some things on it.
Yes, this is, yeah.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, that was the Route
Yes.
29 project.
That was
We're looking at
that
it,
was
I mean, we're basing it on the
71.
best formulas that we're getting from the state,
Yeah.
and whatever. It's a professional engineer, yes.
Yeah, and to speak to this, and I think we spoke on 781, the other one that was done last month, and again, all good points. Commodity costs vary, who knows what it's going to be in 25 years. And I think I said this in the last meeting, is know, what we're seeing, some boards
Yeah, there's two solar farms.
sort of look at what the salvage value is and they treat that to get a higher cash value as well. Because again, there's unpredictability of what raw material costs for the next 25 years. 2x4 last year was $250. Home Depot today, it's almost $9. 2 years from now, it might be $1.50. So that predictability is unpredictable. So that's where we've seen, so we've reviewed probably 25 solar arrays. That's the number we see boards sort of change based on some solar projects.
But we'll appreciate the comment, we'll look at it, we're going to have more discussion on this project.
Appreciate that. I know you're concerned with me.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Any other comments from the public? John?
Yeah, you're listening to another John Montoya, related to the first one. And I'm on 515 Sullivan Road. And I'd like to, can you hear me? Okay. I'd like to pick up on John's comments just a little bit further. When I tried to do a little analysis on this, in today's marketplace, I'd forget about any salvage value or anything. Here I'm looking at a large solar field. I think you took the first one at $100,000 escrow. The second one now is 60, and it's much smaller. So evidently it almost tells me that your first calculations weren't great. They were done a couple of years ago, but now you're doing new calculations that are higher on a per panel size than they were just a few years ago. So if I were calculating this today, what's the average weight of one?
40 pounds?
40 pounds each? Yep. Okay. And the superstructure that supports it?
I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Well, these are the things from an engineering standpoint where the planning board has a fiduciary responsibility to the residents of Milton for 20 years from now. These are the answers that the planning board really needs to be able to know how accurate that escrow account is. And then what happens to that escrow account at 60,000? Does that stay at 60,000 for 20 years?
It's an interest-bearing account. What's the interest?
At what rate?
Yeah, best you can get today.
Well, there's a lot of different rates you can get today, but I remember buying a 67 Ford F-150 for $1,780 in 1967. When I go to the Ford dealer today, I couldn't buy 4 wheels and tires for that money. So I know how the time value of money has drifted by us. And I think all the boards, the attorneys, the engineers, and the planning board has to really ask these serious questions to meet your fiduciary responsibilities to these things. Now, I will say, so far in Milton, the solar farms that have gone up, a couple of them right around me, I have not been totally disappointed. I think generally the visual has been okay, but I do see not meeting the total requirement. On Mr. Ingalls, I talked to Mr. Ingalls personally before the first one died. He said he had visited every neighbor on Murray Road and got their approval. This is what Mr. Ingalls told me. After the solar farm went up, the two people directly across the road from him, neither one of them had heard from Mr. Milton. And the new house that had just been purchased by a young couple lines up with the entrance road into the project. They were so highly disappointed. And the people, next door neighbors, looking over it, were moderately disappointed. Now, when we have an addition like this is not a bad time to do a little mitigation on the site view. And it can be done relatively economically to better shield that area. The entranceway, if it had an angled retaining wall, it would shield that house across the street. In fact, those people were so annoyed they just moved. Okay?
Can I just speak to this?
Yeah.
They were here at the meeting when we got approved. They spoke in favor of the project. And this is all with all due respect to them. I talked to them when they were selling their house. They just sold their house. They moved because he got a job out of state. They put the house on the market for it was either 400 or 410,000, and they sold it for 470. So okay, so I mean they got over a fair amount of the market for the house. They never came to me because I had a direct conversation with me myself. Said they're
I'm not picking on you.
Okay.
I'm talking directly to the owner.
Okay.
Who conveyed this to me. You may have gone, but the owner didn't, and I felt it was the owner's responsibility. Now, all I'm saying to the planning board, now that you have this approval coming up, it doesn't hurt to just mitigate this vision a little bit in this plan. The guy planted trees 20 feet apart on the berm that are 3 to 4 feet high. These aren't going to do anything. I mean, just a small planting of a cedar hedge or something across this thing could make a lot of people happy. So I think while you're doing the total analysis, it's worthwhile mentioning. The other is, on this new project, I haven't even been by there, but I talked to you originally. I have a lot that has a high elevation across from Soderman Road. And originally, they were going to put up a berm there with some tree planting, which didn't get done. Is this going to further impose on that lot up at that elevation? I haven't even looked at the site plan.
So
where's your vegetation coming when you come out from Chad and Hogan's?
So we have, this is the tree line here. Chad's or Hogan's here.
Yeah.
Chad's over here.
You come south.
Come south.
Yeah.
We're running the tree line all the way down the side of, we're leaving that tree line here on the rock wall that separates these two fields.
Well, originally on your original program, you were going to have a berm on
Here.
On that.
That did get built.
What?
That did get built.
Okay. And is that, will I get the same benefit from this new berm and tree line on this property that I would have gotten from this other?
And you have a very mature tree line right here. The only thing we can see from this lot is the cell tower that's on that property.
You can't see the elevation below it?
The board was, the very tops of the trees. So the board was there.
So one other thing on these solar farms, and I'll sit down. Back when I put the cell tower up, my cell tower's 2,500 feet from the road with no visual of the base from anyone. And I was required by the town to put up a black fence around this property. Now, I don't see as many black fences around on visuals right along the road. In fact, our new county fence that just went in isn't the most spectacular thing going down the entrance to the town. And I wonder what happened to all these black fences.
Well, I believe you commented to us 2 years ago, actually, it might have been on this project,
It was on
that
the first
you
page.
thought it was kind of ridiculous that when we had an applicants put expensive fences.
No, that is, I said,
He actually advocated for the fence.
I advocated.
But you said in some cases they didn't always have to be black.
No, that's not what I said. I said, in a visual approach on a major county road, I expect a black fence when I'm required to put one a half a mile back in the woods that nobody can see.
So the fence though that's on the road, isn't that the fence for the recycling junkyard fence?
Well, that's Suitman Road. Has
No, we're talking Murray.
Yeah,
Murray Road, yeah.
So the phase one fence, let's call it phase one on Murray Road, is really behind the berm. So,
That's why we agreed, because the berm, now I haven't double verified, but the berm was supposed to be generally higher than the fence.
it is.
I mean, generally, maybe not in every specific location.
It's substantial.
I didn't see
It's
it.
like 20 feet high.
It's a pretty substantial berm.
Substantial berm, but you people evidently were just out there recently when you were reviewing these projects. There's a lot of visible fence available that is not black. Okay? I'm not talking about the berm behind the fence, I'm talking about the physical fence. And I'm just passing these comments along as value to the planning board to consider when you're making these judgments. Thank you. I'll give you the flashlight.
Any other comments?
One question, will the fence be put up around this black,
Not unless we're told so.
is the fence that's existing down near the road presently black?
No. It wasn't required.
The fence around this, that I could tell, will not really be visible from the road.
There isn't much fence visible now, but it's a little bit going slow and up the access road, so it's not really.
And see, the fence part is just a matter of comment, how things change. So I'm not deliberating on the fence, I'm just using that as an example. If you wanted to truly mitigate it, there's little things you could do with this existing project to make it even less visible. And I will say that generally, I'm concerned about this expansion of solar farms on land that shouldn't be used for solar farms. But so far, I think you guys have done okay on this. I think the Soderman Road project, again, is not a bad application for a solar farm. I'm close friends with the operator. I think he could have done a little better job in front where he filled in and filled down the Soderman Road, putting just a little pressure on him to say, see that side hill so the neighbor right across the street isn't looking at this. These are just little things that I'm looking for. Again, on this project, I guess that's coming up next, I can't think of a better application. I may not be here, but I'll let you know. I think this is a great application for a solar farm on an old dump site that can be used for very little else. and also has the potential of good shielding, I think you guys could wind up with another pretty good project in our town. Thank you.
Anybody else have comments on this project? Okay, the zoning board of appeals is yet to act on this, so we're gonna keep the public hearing open until next month. Wait to see what their decisions and input is there, and then we will reconvene public hearing at 7:10 p.m. in June 16th.
Yeah, just a question, why need to open, so you can hear what the zoning board?
If they for some reason don't act,
Gotcha.
we're in a time clock that we can't potentially get out of, and we could be forced, a decision could be forced on us, right? So to be safe, I'm just going to adjourn the public hearing and then reconvene.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
So with that, we'll adjourn this public hearing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep going. I just want to keep going. We'll take a 2-minute break.
Yeah, I think that might be helpful, thank you.
Okay, are we ready to reconvene? Everybody's here? All right. So the next project this evening is Renasola with the application for site plan review and special use permit for a community solar farm at the former Ostro landfill. Everyone should have before them a number of documents. I'm just going to summarize the ones that were new for this evening. We have the solar decommissioning plan, 3/27/21, a revised full environmental assessment form dated 5/5/21, amended site plan map dated May 5th, 21, Ostro Solar surety bond proposal, the stormwater pollution prevention plan dated May of 2020, solar visual impact photo assessment dated 5/17/21, the Renasola response to the MJ comments of April 20th dated 5/18/21, Renasola response to, I'm sorry, the MJ comments dated 5/8/21, and then the Ostro Solar visual impact assessment dated 5/18/21. Again, I remind that we have the opportunity to visit this project on May 12th. I did follow up with the visual impact observations that the members had regarding the project. Mr. Bianchi, do you have anything at this time that you would
Before the board tonight, I think you have a comment letter from yesterday I circulated. I believe the technical comments that remain can be addressed as a condition of approval, should the board entertain that. The other item we did provide the board was a draft part 2 for the board, for the chair to go over with you this evening if you choose to. Also a draft determination of non-significance. There was a couple items that we changed or added this evening that Chairman Barker was aware of. It was adding a narrative regarding the landfill, the applicant's engagement of DEC on the landfill. So they have worked through that, I believe, or at least they represented that through discussions and emails. The applicant should present that this evening. The one item that this board may want to have a dialogue on this evening is the outcome of your site visit and the visual simulations that the applicants perform. So if there was a desire to add more depth to the seeker findings and non-significance, then I would urge the board to do that this evening. That's it.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is start out with your presentation, go over the record and everything. So are we going to be able to see that just there? Yeah. It would be better for us to probably just come out front.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to add what's going on.
So my name is Adam Croft, I'm representing Minnesota Power. I'm here with Brian from CNS to comment on the engineering portion of the presentation. But I was just going to give a quick introduction to Minnesota Power, if that's helpful, and then I'll turn it over to Brian for some comments on the site and the engineering itself. So we're Minnesota Power. We're a global project developer based in Stamford, Connecticut. We have operations in Europe, China, and the U.S. Over the past years, we developed about 100 megawatts in the United States, focused mostly on small-scale ground-mounted utility and distributed generation projects and community solar in states like Minnesota, New York, North Carolina, Maine, and Utah. So, we're in touch with, as you know, we're in touch with several, with three different jurisdictions in the councils there about the pilots and host community agreements. We also have, as you've seen, the decommissioning agreement in discussion and under negotiation at this time. This particular project is a 2 megawatt facility on a landfill out on Middle Grove Road. And Brian, I'll turn it to you to discuss the engineering and any of the site plans.
Directly into it? Okay, sounds good. Hello everybody, Brian Bear, C&S Engineers. We're based out of Syracuse. We do quite a bit of solar development work and have worked with Venezuela on several projects throughout New York State. As Adam indicated, this is about a 1.925 megawatt AC facility located atop a closed landfill. The landfill was a former sanitary waste landfill that has been capped. It was capped in accordance with DEC requirements, and it is currently undergoing the appropriate monitoring events as a result of Venezuela actually working on this project. It had a history of falling into out of compliance with the monitoring that's required by DEC. And one of the benefits that I see of this project is Venezuela has actually taken the responsibility of undertaking the landfill monitoring operations, and CNS has done that for them, and we found that the actual landfill is doing well, and the DEC is very happy that they have that data now from us, and will have that data going forward. So that's just one of the little bits of due diligence that we've done to date for this project. We've done wetlands delineation. We've done topographic survey. We've done a property boundary survey. We've done geotech survey by way of static load testing. This is a unique facility. Obviously, it's on a closed landfill, so penetrating the cap would be a big no-no. And so this system is actually going to be a ballasted system, and what that means is the solar racking is actually the structure is a ballasted structure, so it'll all sit atop the closed landfill, and there will be no penetrations into the landfill. As with typical ground mount facilities, you see helical piles or driven piles or so forth, but this is all going to sit on top of the landfill. I don't know if you can see what it looks like, but the intent is to use precast blocks to use as the support for this structure. So I don't know if you can see that well, but anyhow. The racking is going to be fixed tilt. A lot of newer development, you may see the tilters. This is going to be a fixed tilt system, and so it'll just obviously just maintain and won't move to track the sun. Let's see here. General improvements to the site will have an access road from the north, basically using the existing landfill road, and they'll use that, contractors use that for development of the site. There'll also be a roadway to the south onto the state highway, and that will be basically for the electrical interconnect. you know, the utility company requires access to their poles, and so that's why this road extends further to the south below, you know, below where the existing landfill access would be. The facility is going to be fenced in. Currently, we don't have any plans for landscaping. It's you know, it's kind of one of these unique situations where we actually can't plant anything because it's a capped landfill. You know, the DEC works very hard at making sure that this area is maintained and mowed. They don't want root structures, you know, getting in and interrupting the engineered design cap. So planting shrubbery and things of that nature is really not allowed based on DEC requirements. The good news is, and I was driving around the site earlier today just to make sure I felt comfortable with this, but it is heavily treed throughout the majority of the project, and certainly, you know, where it would be viewable from the local roadways. We have been in contact with DEC. We are aware of the requirements that DEC has as it relates to landfills. We'll have to go through this change of use process with the DEC folks in solid waste. And basically, their biggest concerns will be maintaining the integrity of the cap. This is a cap landfill. It does have a geotextile membrane underneath it. Basically, you know, they want to make sure that nothing is going to penetrate that cap. And so there'll be requirements that we'll have to meet with respect to the types of construction vehicles we can use. Historically, as I've done projects like this on other landfills, there have been restrictions on the, not the weight, but the actual PSI of these construction vehicles. They've had to use low ground pressure, skid steers, and things of that nature to actually access the landfill. So that's one requirement. We've done the geotech study that we've done is a static load test. Again, basically what our geotech engineers done is they have identified, based on the anticipated loads of these structures, they have identified whether or not significant sloughing or issues would arise, you know, on the landfill based on the weight of these structures. So we have that study done and found that the landfill, and I'm not a geotechnical engineer, obviously, but we have found that the landfill should have no problem sustaining the loads based on the racking system that's designed. So we've completed that work. Again, we've also done some of the landfill monitoring. We've sampled the wells around the landfill. The DEC is very happy to again have that work being done, and Renasola is going to be doing that work again for the foreseeable future. To date, you know, that's about all of the you know, all the things that I guess I could say about what we've done via due diligence. I'd like to just go in now and kind of show you the visual simulations that we've done, so everybody can get a taste of what this is going to look like. Just bear with me for 1 second. All right, well, we took photos from represented locations, you know, in the surrounding area of the landfill facility, right? So we have a bunch of kind of existing conditions and then proposed conditions. Our visual rendering team builds a model, and actually, based on the design of the array, can put the facility footprint on one of these aerials to scale. It's pretty neat, and you know, every time they do this, I'm pretty impressed. So obviously from photo 1, which again is up here, not visible. And there'll be a lot of those. Photo 2. Again, this is along Mill Grove Road, almost near the existing entrance. You really can't see the proposed array. Photo 3A, existing. There's a little gap in the woods there, and so our guy, and by the way, we tried to identify the locations in the area where you can see the landfill. So we stop along the road in situations where the trees open up a little bit, and then we take the picture. We're not taking pictures, based on, where it's the most dense trees. We're trying to find locations where we can see the landfill. So photo 3A, existing, and here's proposed. See a little bit in this area, maybe a little bit of fence. Again, would be pretty tough to see if you're driving, 45 miles an hour down that road. Photo 4. As I was driving around today, again, there's another gap here, and I thought, well, geez, you're definitely going to see it from there. But just the way that the topography of the landfill works out, it's just not visible. Photo 5. Again, just a little further west along Mill Grove Road. You can see it just a touch there. Does anybody see these okay? I'm sorry, I need a bigger screen. I'm going to have to build that into our budget next time. Okay, so photo 6, down here at the intersection of Middle Grove and Highway 29, not visible. Photo 7, again, there's a gap here on the south side of the landfill on 29. There's a big wetland out in front. Definitely one of the locations where you will be able to see it from, that location. Just a little bit further east down the road, photo 8, same thing. You can see it a little bit there. Here's photo 10, just almost directly south. Pretty well hidden based on the vegetation there. Photo 11. It's way down here. Actually, I can't read the name of that road. I apologize. Tried to take a look at that, and it was not visible. 12 down in the intersection here. Just again, not visible. So I don't know if there's anything in particular anybody wants me to go back on to take a look. I was actually surprised when I looked at the Viz Sims at how small it really appeared from these roads, and I just think that has to do with just the distance that this facility is, off of the local roadways. That's about it. Lastly, we have developed a stormwater pollution prevention plan for the facility. And it has a minor grading plan attached with it. We've done a little bit of grading. Really, the only grading that's going to be necessary for the most part is around, the access road. The stormwater plan, our civil guys, they do these things all the time. DEC has guidance, specific to solar farms. We follow that guidance to make sure that, the stormwater issues aren't significant here. Just about the only thing we have to do is put in a couple of infiltration trenches in a couple of locations, and basically those are just designed to slow down the rate of runoff from the sloping or down slope, and just very minimal earthwork there. So not really a lot necessary for this specific project. And then lastly, there are some wetlands. I've done wetlands work for 20 plus years, and I swear I've seen everything, but this was actually new to me. There was a little bit of wetland on the landfill cap that we have to deal with. I tried to talk to our friends at the Corps of Engineers to see if there's a way that we could get those considered to be non-regulated. And, and they were scratching their heads, and we went back and forth a little bit, and unfortunately, if it looks like a wetland and it has wetland soils, even though it's, relative to a cap landfill, then it's still going to be regulated. And so we have to make sure that work is done consistent with the Corps of Engineers. Fortunately, the placement of ballasted racking is typically a non-jurisdictional activity, and so we don't really indicate or expect any major difficulties associated with placement of some solar racking, in these wetlands here that are identified green. So, but that's about everything I have. I don't know if there's any questions, but I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, we should probably get back up to the microphone so they can hear us. So thank you for that presentation. I don't know if the board members have any questions at this time.
Chairman, before you deliberate, there's two other items I apologize, I glossed over my speech. There's two items that I should point out to the board. First thing is that you did conduct a coordinated review. I provided you, the board, responses from the agencies, which was DEC and then 3 adjacent towns. Those who responded, so you are in a position. You are in a position to act on the coordination. The other item is they are in the stream overlay corridor mapped zoning district. If you look at the town zoning map, that zoning district is in this parcel. So there are specific criteria that your zoning code has relative to that. So I urge you, as you get to a point of considering acting on the application, just pay attention to that evaluation. There's a little subset of evaluation criteria we should look at. There's nothing in this application that appears to be too far off from what is allowed, but understand that as another layer of approvals.
And I'll just add that we did look at the stream overlay district. We believe that the clearing that's necessary for the utility as it relates to the shoreline, as designated in your code, is below, I believe, the 5,000 total square feet of clearing. And so a variance relative to that, I don't think should apply. But obviously, if there's any other questions or if we can do anything else relative to that, let me know. And I failed to mention, we also do have the State Historic Preservation Office letter of no effect, which is one of the things I wanted to highlight. And so that has been provided.
Could you just talk a little bit more about the stream overlay?
Sure.
What's going on with that?
Yeah, so the stream overlay is like an overlay district that, if you look at the town zoning map, it's in the town. So,
I know that.
but the criteria, without having the code in front of me, there's limitations on certain activities. Really, it's focused on development in the corridor. And that corridor is 150 feet from the maps, waterways, DEC waterways. In this case, it's I forget the name of the Starbuck. Again, I'd have to look at the code. There was 3 criteria that we look at, that we examine and explore. But really, this development, based on our evaluation, did not really raise any red flags. But I'm just pointing it out to the board that that's another subset zoning district that this becomes part of.
There was a relative percentage of clearing per linear foot of shore. There was a relative amount of clearing per linear foot of shoreline that we had to comply with, and as we measure the shoreline on our property, we're nowhere near touching the percentages that were described in the code. So.
Right, the stream runs east-west, southeast to northwest, so it has a lot of shoreline on the property, so
that's how shoreline is how it says that.
Right, so if I could just briefly tell you what it is. There's clear cutting of more than 5,000 square foot of vegetation. They don't hit that threshold. Basically says the planning board may grant such approvals only if it finds that the proposed activity doesn't degrade scenic character, will not result in erosion of the stream or pollution, or employ with the entities. Those are the 3 types of criteria for evaluating this.
No, that's fine, I just didn't have my copy in front of me, so thank you for doing that. Did we complete and receive the county referral for this?
Sorry, what was that, John?
Did the county referral that completed and received for this?
Yes, that's what, did I send that to you earlier?
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I have in the county. Yep.
Questions from the board? And then we only have one person who wants to comment. You want to hear from the one public comment? All right, let's do that first.
You're on speaker, and if you can just say your name and your address for the chairman.
Hello. Hold on. You're not on speaker.
Hello. Can you say your name and your address?
My name is David Mandel.
Pull it away from your computer, John. It's gonna have to silence this.
I live at 1029 in Liverpool. And I'm objecting to this aspect of this project. The things that immediately stand out from a plan that was delivered to me through the efforts of Mr. Lewis is the fact that there are 7 poles to be erected by the Ren Solar Company that are directly in line with the front door of my house. And since my house is elevated, and I believe these poles are to be beyond 30 feet tall, I would imagine that, and carrying high voltage wires, I imagine that this is going to not only be visible, but detrimental to the desirability of my home, which is already compromised by the fact that I bought it, having been told that I lived across the street from residential property, and having been too stupid to verify what my realtor told me. And secondly, there is, as I understand, a proposed easement so that this company can build a dirt road shown in an orange coloration parallel to Route 29, also directly across from my property. One of the issues that stands out to me, since this project is being built on property owned by people named Ostro, and another one of the maps provided shows that they have a parcel, perhaps their homestead, I don't know what, on Millgrove Road. I wonder why these poles and dirt road access, or potential access, are not cited on Middlegrove Road by their property. Why I am to enjoy the benefit of this project, I'm being sarcastic, visually, and it would seem that their property is totally exempt from any negativity resulting from this, the visual negativity resulting from this project. I don't quite understand that.
Okay, the applicant's going to offer some response.
Thank you for the questions. First, I think there's a little confusion about the orange line that is running east-west. Sorry, we're having some feedback there. I think there's a little confusion with regard to the orange east-west feature that occurs along County Route 29. That actually is not the road, not a road, that is a street. And so, it is labeled as such, but, obviously the font is small and that may be a little confusing. The access road for this project is generally running north-south. The access road will stop approximately, Well, it'll stop before it enters the regulated wetland and regulated adjacent area that occurs north of State Route 29. And so we do, unfortunately, have to have the interconnection along 29 rather than Middle Grove Road because there are requirements that the utility has based on the existing infrastructure. Trust me, we didn't choose that based on, keeping that away from the landowner's property. Rather, we have to meet certain requirements based on infrastructure to tie into the line. And so so that's why the poles are located where they are, because the interconnect has to be at that location, unfortunately. So that's why the interconnect is where it is, if that makes sense.
You're back out.
Is there no facilities for power generation? I think this is just serving to irritate people. There's something wrong with the electronics here, and it isn't my purpose to destroy people's hearing. I don't, again, understand why, if Middle Grove Road is served by National Grid, and the Ostros live on Middle Grove Road, and they're no more distant from the grid than I am, why I am made to incur the detrimental effects.
Yes, sir. It just
Of this project, and the Ostros seem to be exempt.
Yes, sir. Again, Brian Barrett, CNS. I think it's just unfortunate, but the way that the existing infrastructure is established in this area, the only way to appropriately interconnect to the to the utility is via that existing line along State Route 29. Any of the infrastructure along Middle Grove Road that does not meet the parameters, I guess, for this project as it relates to interconnect. That's I guess the best way I can explain it. No.
Anything else, Mr. Mendo? Do you have any other questions or comments, Mr. Mendo?
Are you asking me if I have any more?
Yes.
No, but I would like to know whether or not I have the right to an independent explanation, not one from the company, regarding my reservations and the questions that I've raised.
Can you give an explanation? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time. And let us know how that goes, Mr. Mendo.
Yeah.
Or the planning department will have his numbers and whatnot. You guys can exchange that tomorrow. Okay? Okay, moving along. Thank you for everybody's patience. This is going to be a long evening. All right, this is our brothers. Joe, sorry to keep you on hold for so long, but now we have before us the town board's request for an advisory recommendation for the adoption of the plan development district for a mixed residential subdivision at 272 Stone Church Road. Pursuant to SEQA, the town board will be serving as the lead agency. In addition, at this stage, this is just a recommendation of ours, so it's advisory, so we don't have any SEQA obligation yet to complete. We're reviewing, at this period of time, we're reviewing the project pursuant to our subdivision regulations, chapter 154. Tonight, we must make a recommendation to approve or to review with modifications, or tell the town board that we just can't finish this project or something. But it is, again, it's our recommendation to them. The town board is looking for direction. I know the supervisors talked to us and saying he'd like to have some input from the planning board with respect to the overall project. And if we don't resolve everything, areas of concern that we think need to be addressed as we might go forward with the project. So with that, Campbell, do you have anything that you or would like to add to us before we do
Certainly, presented this project last month. I think I went through many of the details at that meeting. At that meeting, it was discussed that this board was going to speak with the highway department and emergency services. I volunteered or offered to be involved in any of those meetings or comments. I've not seen any comments from those boards. I'm hoping that they are going to be provided tonight. Certainly, we are looking for the board to make a determination and recommendation of approval or approval with modifications. At tonight's meeting, we certainly would like to see disapproval of the project, because we really haven't gotten any substantial input from this board yet. A couple items I do want to hit on. We obtained a letter, or we received a letter from NJ Engineering dated last month, just shortly after that planning board meeting. There was about 17 comments and some sub-comments under there. I'm sure Joel will be reading some of them into the record tonight, so I just want to kind of do some preemptive discussion on them. Item number 2, we certainly agree that prior to a secret determination and approval of the PDD, we will complete a traffic study based upon the density of units that this board and the town board seem fit. Same thing for sewer and water capacity. We will be looking to obtain those letters for sufficient capacity for sewer and water on the property. That'll occur as an iterative process, both through the PDD process and as well as the planning and engineering process. We're aware of the potential for endangered species and bats, and there's certain restrictions we can live with on the property subject to DEC and U.S. Fish and Wildlife regulations. We do have an archaeological area on the site. We've completed phase 1 studies. We've identified a couple small areas on the property that they have concerned over. We have not proceeded with any of that information to a filing. We're trying to work with the layout, make sure we're going to be able to avoid those areas as we continue through this process. Those areas are generally located right here in the location where the existing farmhouse remains are, and the area that's certainly being utilized by the scenic project at this time. We did have the New York State DEC on site last week. They looked at the wetlands. They agreed with our configuration. They did take jurisdiction of all of the wetlands on the property other than a small finger up here. So there will be a 100-foot adjacent area associated with all of those wetlands. We have designed the property with the thought that maybe they would take that, so we're still maintaining that we're not disturbing wetlands. We may have some adjacent area impacts associated with the project. Question about the slopes on the property. We can provide topographic maps. We have looked at the LiDAR information. We have gone out there and done some surveying. There's no areas of 50% slopes on the property. And I don't think there's actually any areas that are over 10% slopes, so that's certainly something that doesn't provide any additional constrained land on the property itself. Questions, concerns with the board from MJ talks about trails versus sidewalk or extension of trails up and down Stone Church Road. It's certainly something we're open for discussion on. We are providing a substantial trail system throughout the open space and along the east side, accompanied by a dog park. Question about a limit of 20 houses on a dead-end road. The town, Milton, has in their code 20 houses. New York State Fire Code limits that to 30 houses. We're certainly staying below the means of New York State Fire Code. Being a PDD, that is something we could work into the legislation. It would require variance by the zoning board of appeals, and we work right into the legislation.
Just so you know, on the record, we've been in discussions about treating that zone amendment for units, and the board just hasn't acted on it, but we did get a variance and we do articulate that in prior statements.
Right. The board waived that part.
Yes.
Yeah, I think if New York State says it's okay, that's a pretty good standard. Stormwater, we're open to discussions about the HOA, future HOA, if that's the direction we go. Owning and maintaining the stormwater systems, we're sort of looking for the town to own and maintain the roads. Setbacks, we had talked a little bit about this at the last meeting. What we agreed to at that meeting is we're at 7.5 on each side of the lot. What we're proposed to do is go to 17.5 for the total, meaning one side has to be at least 10, the other side has to be at least 7.5. So work with the town in that. Front setback, currently have it proposed at 20. We're trying in this project, one of the reasons we're doing this cluster is we're trying to reduce the footprint of this property from what a standard single-family community would be. Cluster developments, as we're proposing, are generally sought after by communities to reduce infrastructure, reduce road length, reduce the footprint of the property. Just to give you some general stats, in the cluster design we have here, we have about 3,500 linear feet of road with 100 units, and there's about 17 to 20 acres of land that will be disturbed as part of this project. Under a conventional layout of this property, we'd be looking somewhere in the range of 80 to 110 homes. We have close to 7,500 linear feet of road, more than double, and we'd have closer to 60 acres of disturbance and no open space. So that disturbance could be increased to closer to 80 acres because there would be no restrictions other than the wetlands themselves. Again, so I think what we're doing here is we're trying to minimize the footprint impacts to the adjacent property owners, the land itself, to the greatest extent possible for the community. Going with the 20-foot setback, that certainly reduces the size of the lot, keeps the backyard smaller, again, reduces that environmental footprint on the property. The dog park is proposed to be a private dog park for the community owners. Again, the smaller lots, most everybody I think has a dog these days. This gives those landowners that have a smaller lot, a very easy lot to maintain, a place to bring their dog and walk their dogs in a community area, let that dog run around in a fenced-in environment. The units themselves, again, these smaller lots, they tend to be maintenance-free. They're marketed towards seniors, empty nesters, young professionals that don't want the big lots, don't have big families, and want to have little as maintenance responsibility as possible on their own properties. And then you provide them with more amenity space that they can use as a whole. We do have some runway protection zone on the property. Consistent with the zoning requirements, we don't have any of the structures, and there will be no structures within there. We do have a little bit of the rear yard property going in there, which is allowed. At the last meeting, we did discuss if it is something the board wants us to do, we can pull those rear yards out and do some slight modifications. We don't think we make a substantial change to the project, or maybe lose a building or so. And we talked to the ownership. These are going to be owner-occupied units. This is not a duplex unit where one entity would own the entire building, live in one half and rent the other half. These are going to be a single-family attached dwelling. There's no lot line shown in the middle at this time, but there will be in the future once the units are established. So each lot and each half of that 2-unit townhome will be owned by an individual owner on the property. We're not looking for any absentee landlords, rentals, anything of that nature. So again, I think that hits the highlights of Joel's letter. We think we have a great project. We think we're providing something that's not really in this community. And we're providing a market that's certainly not in this community.
I just wanted to say, I don't think I got Joel's number.
I said it the day after the last meeting. He responded, and I'll send it to you tomorrow. I thought the whole board got it.
No, but that's okay. Covered it well. So on your last point, can you give some clarity as to how you or the developer or the homeowners associations will ensure that leasing rental arrangement doesn't happen?
So, I don't.
What's to say somebody doesn't come in and say, I'll buy 2 units right next to each other and I'm going to rent one?
So certainly the way these homes are going to be designed and built, we're not building $200,000 units that are going to be in that market that's eligible to be rented. These are going to be attractive single-family attached dwellings. I don't think there's anything in any code that would prohibit somebody from renting their house, even in a single-family community as ones adjacent to us. Somebody could move out and rent their house. I don't think we could ever stop that. I just don't think that's a provision of the code that we can certainly stop. It's certainly not the intent of the applicant. It's not the intent of the developer. We want owner-occupied dwellings. We want this to be a nice community. And it is not any of their intent to ever make this a rental community.
So last month, I think at one point we discussed the possibility of potentially separating the units by a certain number of feet. I'm not sure what code would allow or not allow. I mean, do you think that and then making them separate lots would help address that? To say, it looked more like detached single family homes, even though they're going to be real close to each other. So I take it you're going to show me different ranges.
Yeah, so I have a rendering that shows these units on this entire side of the road broken up into smaller single-family lots. I don't think the ability or the thought that somebody can rent these units is going to change by separating them into single-family homes.
It's different aesthetic.
It's a different aesthetic, and in my opinion, I think it looks more dense and more spread out than the current plan we have in front of us. I think there's open space on these lots than when we go to this look here, where we break them all into smaller single-family homes. I think one of the things I brought up at the last board, the townhouse, single-family attached market is being built all over Saratoga County right now. There's not many here in the town of Milton, if any. I offered I could provide a list of some of the nicest communities in the area that have these single-family attached dwellings in them. They're not being rented out. They are probably 90 to 95% of them are owner-occupied. Certainly the occasional situation where they get rented out here and there. As I say, we can't guarantee they won't, but I think in any community, single-family, 2-family, 4-family, there are rentals.
Have you given any thought, go back to the other one, potentially looking at staggering the front setbacks a little bit, making the buildings, and I know you mentioned at the last meeting, when the developers really take an interest in this, they're going to come back and have other design ideas. So what we're seeing is still fairly conceptual. I mean, we could get tight on it and say we can't deviate from this one. I mean, do you think altering the buildings next door to each other a little bit with a little bit of different roof line, or having buildings further back? help improve?
I think that's a very valid point, and I think we could work that into some of the generic renderings. I mean, we're showing a square box on here. I haven't seen a square box built for a house in 30 or 40 years. It's generic. There's going to be garage doors. There might be some side load garage doors. The garage doors are going to be different treatments against carriage doors. Some are going to be two bay garages. Some are going to be one large door. Porches will be set back. Porches will be set forward. I think the architectural character that is going to be built here is going to take care of that concern rather than forcing it to be a 5-foot step between buildings where one half has a 5-foot step, believe it or not. Certainly we could agree to have some fenestration along those facades. I just don't think we want to make individual buildings have to change that way.
And I mean, I don't want to necessarily compromise with what the eventual builders, architects and engineers come up with, just creative ideas to improve these things. And we won't know until we see it. But if we could put something in the language, even in the eventual PDD law, that says in one consideration given to.
We would agree to that, to have some language in there that would create that fenestration along the front.
So one of the other comments we've been getting from some people is towns. Has been how do you keep the aesthetics and maintenance and appearance of the lawns, particularly with the townhouse portion of it.
Excuse me, Chairman, can you speak up a little bit? We can't
Sorry.
hear you back there.
Sorry.
Thank you.
So would you consider having a stronger homeowners association that had much stronger ties to this is the type of colors that you're going to have, this is the only materials you can use on the roofs, this is the landscaping, get to a point of, no, you know what, we maintain the exterior, and we mow the lawns, and we deal with the landscaping, and we clear the snow, not the individuals.
So I do anticipate that when a builder comes on board and buys this, that we are going to end up with some sort of a maintenance-free community. And I think many of the restrictions that you're asking about will be included into that HOA document. Certainly a requirement to have lawns mowed and landscape maintained in a reasonable appearance that's aesthetically appealing certainly is something that an HOA will require.
We already have a development though, that you're going to get one roof is got a metal roof, the next one's got an asphalt roof, and people aren't maintaining them, they're changing the siding and architectural amenities around them, some are not keeping up with anything, and it's really turned into a bit of a mess. I didn't expect that here, but part of the problem is there was no HOA at all.
Correct.
And it wasn't envisioned to have a controlling interest. So that's something that I think we want to see flushed out as part of this PDD as well.
And certainly we agree that there will be an HOA associated with this and aesthetics of the community will be included within that HOA.
With respect to the recreational amenities, the trails, the dog park, I think what we're hearing is we're inclined to not want them to be open to the public, that it would be all HOA maintained to the residents, at least on that internal stuff that you have here. We do want to have some further discussions, we won't have to resolve that tonight, or how do we encourage pedestrian movement over Stone Church Road, maybe pedestrian connections down the guys. I realize that's not your total responsibility, but how do we start designing this in a way that gets us to the same place?
And certainly one of the things we've been able to do in the past projects is provide easements or provide dedication of land adjacent to the right-of-way to give a bigger right-of-way so that the town has the ability in the future to make these pathway, trail, and sidewalk connections. That's something we should definitely consider.
The DPW had this was?
Detail, that's from fire.
Oh, from the fire department.
I've got the other responses, but it was just, I was going to highway, he gave me some stuff at EMS, found that there was no impact of those
So here, the fire department was asking about water and hydrants, and those haven't been labeled. I'm assuming, based on my knowledge, but it's going to be fully municipal sewer and water, so it's going to happen.
We'll have the hydrants every 500 or 700 feet, whatever the requirements
And then they were concerned about snow removal.
Yeah,
Sure, things to
Yeah,
be.
the highway superintendent, he has, refers this to the cul-de-sac issue as a problem for maintenance for him. He has concerns of location of the kiosk for, the postal service now is requiring kiosks and maintenance dedicated to the HOAs for that.
Bill, can you use the microphone?
I'm sorry. Yes, the highway superintendent has raised concerns of the mail kiosk, which would service the rendering that the applicant had. He's also concerned with the cul-de-sac. Again, it's not changed in our code, 20 to 30. Fire code's 30, our code's 20. He has concerns with that, but he's worked with it in the past, the exemption.
So it's not the cul-de-sac itself, it's just the number of units.
They're concerned, they don't like the maintenance in the cul-de-sac because with an HOA, it could address the cul-de-sac maintenance issue, I think, but they're concerned with snow, the radiuses of the cul-de-sacs, the snow and all 9 yards. As long as they're built to engineering specs of the town, they can maintain them, but they're a problem area that we found when you're dedicated to the towns, and that's just basically what he's saying. Also, sorry, bear with me. And it just has concerns of snow storage and offloading from the roads with, you'll have, I believe, the applicant's proposing a garage for each unit and then a parking space behind it. But he's concerned with the amount of snow that we get in the northeast, snow storage and distance from the road, setback information and things like that. He's just concerned with, again, the on-street, potential on-street parking.
Certainly like to jump in on a couple of those. Cul-de-sac issue. I've never met a highway superintendent in any town in the Northeast that enjoys cul-de-sacs. We have put in hammerhead turnarounds at the end of cul-de-sacs. I'm not sure aesthetically that anybody really likes the hammerhead cul-de-sac alternative either way. So there's not a great solution for dead-end streets, and I wish we could make every road that we ever designed a through street, so we never had to deal with that issue. But the cul-de-sacs are designed to meet minimum turning radii for all large apparatus, tractor trailers can turn around them. Yeah, I guess that's really all I can say about that. As far as snow storage, we are looking at each building unit will have a 2-car garage, and they will have 2 spaces behind that garage that will be completely outside of the right-of-way. So now we have off-street parking for 4 vehicles for every unit. I think the minimum required parking in the town is 2 cars per single-family dwelling. So we're going to far exceed that. We're doing a standard town right-of-way of 60 feet, standard pavement widths, which is going to give us about 14 feet from the edge of the pavement to the right-of-way. So there's plenty of room within the right-of-way for snow storage without the need for cars parking per unit. It's not one of the projects where we have one car randomly parking with another car, and then you end up having to park on the streets and you're not flip-flopping vehicles all the time.
You just also stating that the additional cost of revenue for the highway to operate the roads would create another with the shortage, might create another route for them. That's pretty much all it is. For subject to the town board to think about and address. Yep.
You make sure I get a copy of that.
Yeah, he's going to put it in writing. It's attached right now to an corresponding to as we speak. And I just did the EMS supervisor, Tim Thomas, a letter is from Dan Reed, he's fire chief of the Roxton Falls Fire Service.
And then lastly, we had some
about traffic impacts on future roads and nearby intersections. Does any other board members have comments at this point? Certainly bring them up. Let's get going.
And love to hear any comments as we go through our next step after tonight's meeting. The board has to make a recommendation at tonight's meeting because of the time constraints. We then go to the town board and start talking about legislation and how we're going to draft this. Sorry. We go to the town board and start developing legislation, drafting the legislation that's going to be reviewed by the town board as well as the town's attorney. So any input that we can incorporate now will certainly make our lives easier and your life easier when we come back to the planning board in a few months. Subdivision plan.
Other comments?
Chairman, if you look at the email to you on April 22nd, that's what.
Yes.
I got a quick question on your two renderings. Were the numbers of units the same?
Yes.
Okay. And when I had a question also about the mail kiosks and stuff. They are going more towards that community kiosk type event. And I think it ought to have a spot for it. Because I don't think they're going to go to individual mailboxes in this particular development. Additionally, your homeowners association are all the properties associated with going to be in the homeowners association or only specific units?
To be determined, but certainly all of the townhouses and these single families will be involved. These two units, the estate lots may or may not be involved in that HOA. That would be the one thing we don't certainly, I can't give you a direct answer on here. Likely, yes, but
Because I would think if you're all in the same unit, they should all be in the homeowners association, right? So, but that's, that could be negotiated as well.
I think a lot comes down to how do you define it. So it could be things, townhomes that are more aggressive than what we're doing in this house, family homes, the recreation, and then you just got there, the trails and whatnot. Oh yeah, everybody should have paid for them.
Right.
It's not like the estate people aren't going to have kids and dogs and.
Right.
So I think that's the complexity of how that would develop the system in HOA, or HOAs.
It was their decision to put in single-family homes and then split townhome kind of deals and then estate homes. So it was your idea to do that, so that's why I'm asking the question. So
right.
They could have all been a PDD with all lots like that.
Right.
I had a question about, go ahead.
I was just saying, again, all of the townhouse lots in this one, I think 100% are going to be involved in the HOA. It really comes down to the two estate lots. The current owners of the property, two of whom are with us tonight, Ed and Mike Cesar, they're probably going to retain one or both of these lots as their Cesar estate that they've had for the last, when did
100 years.
100 plus years, 150 years. They've had the estate there, so one of those that's going to be their lot. That's something they're going to have to negotiate out with whoever the builder is that buys the property. So they say that's the only exception I don't want to throw in there.
I'm curious. We did the other property over there for Sam Scott, right? That had the older, the kind of self-contained kind of events, right? And we talked a lot about the distance and the size of the driveways and so forth. Your properties are about 5,000 square feet, right? Plus or minus a square foot among friends, right? But your distance, I think, is going to be really close to the road, right? For the front of the unit to where the road is going to be how much?
So we're having a 20, we've talked about maybe going to 25. Again, that's kind of the discussion we were having. And then from the right-of-way line to the pavement itself is going to be another 15, 16 feet. So we're going to have somewhere 35 to 40 feet to the garage door. Different than the other community, which is a rental community with one-car garages that would have 2 cars parking in tandem. And then we included a bunch of the extra parking in there to help accommodate that. Again, we're looking at 2-car garages with at least 4 on the property, and certainly you could probably fit 4 in the parking lot plus, or 4 in the pavement plus 2 in the garage.
So is that a change then? You're going to 25 feet or 30 feet from the road?
We would like to stay at 20, that's what we're proposing. There's been discussion about increasing it to 20, 25 or more. I like the idea of keeping the lots compact and consolidated to minimize the footprint of the project. Certainly if there's a desire of this board and recommendation to increase that to 25, that could certainly be a recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
John, if the board wanted to get an idea, and I think this might be compared to property in town of Boston, Round Lake Road, east of East Line, west of East Line.
Timber Creek?
Yes, the first phase of it is very similar, where the houses are close, both side setbacks and close to the road. It's a different kind, I'm indifferent, but that board can always look at that. It's very similar, size of house and offset.
I'd say that's pretty close. I don't know the exact specifics,
Yeah,
but
just
certainly the
generally.
type of community we're looking to develop.
And in the past, in the last meeting, we talked about the sections of the code you were gonna include into the PDD, right? I really would like you to consider including some of the special use permit options due to the nature of the building. The nature of the building is extremely similar to a 2-family unit. And some of those elements should be called out as part of the PDD if we go with this type of a structure. It's got specific inclusions in there as far as firewalls and things like that. It's got specific things as far as the distance to the roads and how much parking and so forth. Also, what it should look like and so forth, they're included in here. So I really think we should evaluate including some of the special use permit items because of the nature of the property and because of what it is and where it's going. So, you include the elements of it with the special use permit for like two-family dwellings and stuff like that. So it's the elements of that in the PDD. And I know you said you're going to address it with 4 parking spaces per unit and stuff like that. But if you take those elements into the PDD, you can see and step yourself through where you could change, 2 to 4, things like that.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that it's your desire to, you think there are some good elements within, I'm not sure what section it goes, especially use permit code for 2-family dwellings, that you would like to see included within the language.
Yeah, 18042 H.
Yeah, I'm sure most of them are probably applicable, some of them are probably not. But certainly something, there's definitely going to be a firewall between the units, providing the parking, and certainly we can review that, and if there is specific ones that you feel more strongly about than others, that doesn't have to come exactly with the NISO, that can be added, just recommendations at future dates of the planning board. I'm sure for the most part, I don't think we're having any issue with that.
For instance, it gives you parking in the district, it gives you the R1, R2, stuff, but it says, as required for an accessory unit, principal residence is a minimum of 2 spaces per dwelling on the site and is designated and located to be convenient without encroaching on any yard or setback area, right? So I wouldn't really want you to encroach on somebody else's area. And I think we ought to figure out how close to the line can your parking be, right? Is your parking going to be on the line? Like I can have my driveway as big as my property? Or is there going to be a setback? Because currently, you can't have it almost to the property line, right? So is that something we're gonna have in here when there's only 5,000 square feet? If somebody wants to turn their front into a large parking lot, they wanna have 5 or 6 cars, can you do that? And that's why I want to see some of that language in here where we have that discussion and come to what we think it should look like. And why make new code when it already exists and, it's already black and white here or something? Yeah.
Yeah, and certainly
Yeah.
we don't anticipate having, allowing somebody to have a parking lot in their front yard. That's something that is going to be covered with the HOA maintenance and aesthetics portion of the project.
Right. And then like the general considerations, I would think that that's from the special use permit is something that we should consider in the PDD legislation. That's 18041. And I think we ought to address whether there's going to be sidewalks or no sidewalks, and whether it's going to be all street or whether it's going to be something else. So those things ought to be delineated in there, because otherwise we'll be talking about them later as to whether we're including them or not including them.
So certainly we talk sidewalks. We're providing a substantial area of trail for walking and pedestrian use.
Yep.
We don't think we want to do redundant sidewalks. If we do commit to sidewalks, I think the trail goes away. That'd be our position on that.
Well, I'm glad we had that chance to talk.
I don't think there's sidewalks in any of the surrounding communities out in this area of the town. Atwood Boulevard, immediately adjacent to us, there's no sidewalks. Can't think of one that's being built on Stone Church right now.
Right. I wasn't saying necessarily there had to be sidewalks. What I was saying is the elements should be included in there, and then you step through them, the A, the B, the C, the D, and have those elements in the PDE. In addition, when we did the one for Samuscott, right, where we put the area where the mailbox and so forth was, we did have to provide some degree for the individual to get to the place, right? Because it was a pretty good distance away. There was no sidewalk, no nothing to get there. So we're going to have to think about that in this situation, depending on where you put it.
Certainly. And we may have, the cluster boxes are done up to 16 or 32.
Yep.
We may have a few different cluster boxes here, since we have 4 different pods or 3 different pods of areas.
Well,
Certainly a
that's
consideration for site plan or subdivision.
Well, that's why I would have these general considerations in.
Yep.
Yeah. Something to consider. Thanks.
Anybody else? We have to write a recommendation.
Everybody loves the project.
48 hours.
It's built, is what I hear.
Better if I would have seen a copy of legislation.
Well, remember, we're going to be able to see this project again. So the way we frame these recommendations at this point, I think, are still going to be at that 30,000 foot level.
Oh, sure.
And then Joe's going to start, if he decides to go forward, he's going to start drafting this law. And I'm sure he's going to be talking to people here at the town, saying, all right, this is where we think we're going with this. Is this meeting what your 30,000 foot expectations were? And then we start getting down lower and lower. Then he's got to come back to us and go through a full subdivision and site plan review.
Correct.
Actually, there's actually one other opportunity that we're going to have time to chime in again, so the town board, if they choose to move forward, do seek. You will be an involved agency. You will be contacted to agree to
Why are
that.
we an involved agency?
We're the involved agency where the town board is the lead agency.
This is kind of weird in meanwhile, because
The change is on. The town board is the only lead agency. They approve the zone change, therefore, they're the first agency at the town level that can see this application. They have the lead agency, you will be involved in.
no, I understand that. How do we get in as an involved agency?
What else would you be?
We're nothing. We're
But
just an advisory body.
But it's a type 1 action. the change of zone because it affects more than 25 acres. Therefore, you need to do a coordinated review with involved interested agencies. You have a regulatory authority of subdivision approval, should PUD approve, so therefore you are involved in the decision. No different than DEC, DOA, Certified Sewer District.
But we'll have many bites at the apple.
Oh, yes, at least two.
So I think now what Joe wants is to give him enough recommendations that he can frame, he knows how he's going to frame this.
Generally, what I need from this board is, they like the idea, they think it's something that's, they can work with and bring through a subdivision process, or, no, get out of here and don't come back. But that's kind of what I'm looking for.
So, input. What do you want me to write?
I can honestly say I'm concerned about what the townhouses will look like in 20 years. Because when I first moved here, I looked at a place in Deer Run, and it was all kept up, and it was really nice. I mean, that was many years ago. And now it's run down, and it's like my son was looking to buy a place in there, and said no, he wouldn't even buy a place in there. So that's my concern. It has to be a really strong HOA, and it has to stay intact for years. It can't just band after X amount of time. In order to keep the quality of the buildings up and the surroundings. That's my biggest concern.
You all good? You all good for now?
It's just similar concerns.
So would you be comfortable with a recommendation that basically says conceptually we agree that this plan could go through a subdivision review and approval process? And we have, what I would frame is that we have concerns about the HOA, how that long-term maintenance and whatnot, particularly the townhomes, that the density will be challenging. How do we address that? Probably more aesthetically and design, dealing with the density. That the traffic within the place has to meet some of the needs that the highway department will do. And I think it's just basically something's got to really aggressively meet the town's road standards. That we have concerns about the traffic off-site, what that might be generating, so we want to see some work on traffic, potentially mitigation down the line, and that we don't necessarily want the recreation, we don't want the recreation to be public recreation. It's going to be, again, the residents, strong HOA, making sure that that's it. The last thing I want to bring up is we have an amenities package as part of our PDD law. So should the town go forward, we're going to want to have a discussion with you and the developer and everyone about what that amenities package will include. Certainly it's going to include recreation, probably going to include something on traffic. There may be others. And what we're going to specifically suggest is that 3 of the planning board members be assigned as a subgroup to work with you or whoever on that amenities package.
We're pushing the developer in the town.
Yeah. Well, there'll be 3 members of this board to the negotiation.
Yeah, the town board is the one that's.
The amenities package ultimately is going to be dealt with.
What's that?
They're going to deal with the amenities package.
Yeah. So again, I just found the PDD law, it sounds like we are going to get a recommendation of approval. Approval with concerns and considerations from the board.
The other one, although it's not our purview, is how how do we meet the 50 contiguous acres of land?
One piece of property.
It's a single tax.
Single tax file.
Wait, the road doesn't divide it.
One tax ID.
Well, it's one tax ID, right?
But therefore it's contiguous, right?
If I wanted to build two houses, I would have to subdivide it. I can only build one house on this property, so one contiguous piece of land. This is a merger of two different landowners coming together, which I've seen done to try and get meetings through. This is
Right.
literally one landowner started, I got the entire history lesson. I think it started as a 1,000-acre farm in the 1800s up here with some other pieces of land that were sold off, and now it's been 84 acres for many, many years.
So it is all one piece? It's not an east and west piece?
It's east and west just because that's a way to define it in the language. I would defer to to Bill, is this a single parcel, and does this meet the 50 acre minimum for the zoning?
Okay. That's really the town board's purview, not ours.
Yeah. I mean, they should have dealt with that question, it was never a question months ago. Okay, everybody comfortable with that? I will draft over the next few days a letter. It has to be in the town board by Monday. We're coming up on our 62 days.
25th is Tuesday.
So it'll be they want it before Wednesday because we're going to do a town board meeting and we want to potentially discuss this.
I guess I'll just ask legal counsel, do they have to make a motion that they're going to do this recommendation, or is it just a written recommendation?
I think, Joe, it's really of an advisory nature, so they've reached a consensus. It sounds like the chairman got drafted to offer it. That's about it at this point.
Nobody else can speak about it, let alone offer it.
Just want to make sure they need a motion.
Yep.
Perfect.
So,
Appreciate it, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so late. So is there any other business to come before the board this evening? Being no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 10:03 p.m.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned.